Last night, President Biden went on late night TV. Now, he said his message, the message of his administration, is not getting through to the American people via the legacy media. He didn't say legacy media, but he said through the media. So he's trying another way. Now, I kind of wonder, could it be that they don't want to hear what he has to say, given the horrible effect of his policies? Anyway, here is a clip of what President Biden had to say last night.
It's clear that if, in fact, the decision comes down the way it does and these states impose the limitations they're talking about, it's going to cause a mini revolution. They're going to vote a lot of these folks out of office.
Okay, that was the president last night talking about the Supreme Court decision in the Dobbs case. That's the abortion case. That's the opinion that was leaked overturning Roe v. Wade. That's the one that prompted this gunman to go outside the house of Brent Kavanaugh to assassinate him. He was arrested. He's now in jail. I mean, the president's saying if the court goes forward with this, and the states that already have trigger mechanisms in place to make their states pro-life, protecting the unborn, it's going to cause a mini revolution. All right, let me just dissect that for a moment. Number one, he is upping the political rhetoric and the temperature of the country. He should be calming it. In fact, that's what they criticized President Trump for. But then let's think about this for just a moment logically, okay? So if they're concerned that if the court overturns this, that it's going to go to state legislatures, and state legislatures are going to outlaw abortion, that it's going to trigger a mini revolution and those legislators would be voted out of office, then what's wrong with that? Isn't that actually what we want? We want this to be decided legislatively. In fact, what we've seen over the last 20 years, and this is the problem for them, we've seen the country become even more pro-life. In fact, about 40% of all pro-life legislation has been passed, that's passed since Roe v. Wade in the last 50 years, has happened in the last 10 years, almost 40%. The nation has become more pro-life. The reality is they have had to have the court. They have to have the court. The political process doesn't work for them because the American people are not with their agenda of death. In fact, the landscape for Democrats, and I don't even want to use the term Democrats, it's the left. The landscape for them, the forecast does not look good based on what we've seen just out here in California this past Tuesday in the numbers. Joining me now to talk about what California, the picture it's painting for Democrats going into the fall, is Brent Keilen, Vice President of FRC Action. Brent, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Tony. Good to be with you.
All right. I know there were 7 states in total, but California, obviously the biggest one, and some big news coming out of California. But overall, what's the picture that we get from Tuesday's primary election in terms of enthusiasm? Are the Democratic voters enthusiastic, or is it the Republican voters who are enthusiastic going into the fall?
Tony, great question. And you're right. So we now have data from these 7 states that had primaries Tuesday. Most of those ballots are now counted, but we also have a number of states that went before them. So we now have data on, 17, 20 states here. And it's actually painting a pretty stark picture when you compare GOP enthusiasm versus Democrat enthusiasm. So we have some numbers that are comparing what was the turnout this year, 2022, this midterm, versus 4 years ago, 2018, which was the last midterm, and just breaking out the percentage when you put GOP and Democrat side by side. And Tony, in almost all of these states, all except for one, in fact, there's a decided edge for a Republican in terms of enthusiasm. And let me just give you a few highlights from the data that we have so far. If you look at a state like Ohio, which often has been called a swing state, back in 2018, Republicans made up 55% of the primary turnout. When you fast forward this year, 2022, that's up to 68%. So that's over 2/3. Wow. side by side with Democrats. You look at West Virginia 4 years ago, it was a Republican percentage of the turnout was 46. This year it was up to 65, almost a 20-point jump. And then Georgia, huge swing state there. 4 years ago, Republican percentage was 52%. This year it was 62. And Tony, I could go on and on, but if you do the math and just add all of these 17 states that we have good numbers for so far, Republican turnout has been up 36%. Combined. Democrat turnout has gone down 3% overall. So it's a huge edge so far in terms of which base is fired up in these primaries.
And that makes a huge difference in terms of who has the enthusiasm, who has the momentum. And I think what is depressing Democratic voters are the policies of the Democratic Party as they've been hijacked by the radical left. And we're seeing it at the pump, we're seeing it on the grocery store aisle, we're seeing it everywhere. And it's going to be a drag for the Democrats going in to the midterm election because all they focus on is their radical social policy. Brent, we're out of time, but always great to see you. And keep tracking those numbers because we're going to be talking a lot about them in the weeks and months ahead.
Sounds good, Tony. Appreciate it.